Hey guys, good afternoon. So I have some very major news for you guys. I was very wrong last week when I said my first frost isn't predicted until about November 1st, and even the monthly weather prediction does not show a frost happening around that time. So I might even have like another week or two after November 1st. So we're looking at about 4 more weeks of growing. So literally 2 days after I said that, we had a frost. And it was not just one, it was, I think, 3 days in a row of very mild frosts, but one of them got down to, I think my weather station recorded 29.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's some damage for sure. I definitely did not do anything to prepare because the weather prediction did not say it was going to happen. None of the days that it happened was it in the forecast. And so I am simultaneously like, wow, I can't believe it got that cold, but also I am very surprised at the actual minimal amount of damage that I saw, even though I didn't actually do anything to prepare. Also, because the frost did kill a couple things, I have had to make some very quick turnaround changes in the garden. Hey, sweet girl. What you doing? So I squatted down to say hi to Kata, and I just saw these. These are carrot sprouts. They are like right here by my walkway. There's actually another one here. This is where I set my little winnowing setup for separating out my carrot seeds from all the like detritus that comes along with, dried seeds. And I guess the wind blew some actual seeds as well as all of the fluff into the garden, and then they just sprouted, which is wild because it's so hard to get carrots to sprout. But these seeds have been really easy to sprout, actually, for carrot seeds at least, and the germination rate seems to be really good. There's another one right there. Maybe I'll let these stay and keep up with them, because the stuff that germinates on its own without any help is always the hardiest. That's why I look at stuff like this collection of lettuce that sprouted from all the seeds that dropped, and I'm like, yeah, go for it. These are going to be the strongest plants in the garden. So one of the surprising things is that the tomatoes and the peppers don't have all that much damage compared to some of the more sensitive stuff. It seems like only the most sensitive plants got injured by the frost. Like not even this tropical turmeric plant. Like it's obviously damaged, right? But it's not dead. Like it didn't get turned to mush. So I think that gives like kind of a good perspective of what happened when the frost came. A very good example of something that was sensitive that died is basil. Like you can see it still got a couple of green leaves on it, but most of the leaves, brown, mush, destroyed, So that is unfortunate, but the good news is I actually was harvesting a lot to make a batch of pesto last week anyway, so the amount of loss that I saw was very, very minimal on that. But like pretty much every basil along here looks the same. I did have some tomatoes sitting out here. I've pulled a lot of them now. And here's some green tomatoes that are definitely not frost damaged. Like look at these. These look absolutely fine. They're on green stems. There's some damaged leaves, right? But it's hard to tell how much of that was the frost and how much of that is just the plant giving up for the season. Like these plants have looked crappy for many weeks now. Like you can barely see any leaves on any of these bean plants. And yet, here we have some beautiful tomatoes. So, I think that's really lucky. There's another one right here. All these little ones still coming in. Here is a very good illustration of what a fully frost damaged plant looks like. The leaves are all brown and droopy, and this is because the water inside them froze and broke all the cell walls. So everything about the structure of the cells of this plant got destroyed. And so overnight, it goes from a vibrant plant to fully wilty and brown. That is the frost damage that you might be looking for. In this bigger second row here, you can see a little bit more damage on some of the plants. This is frost damage on my eggplant, but you can see leaves that were lower to the ground. These are perfectly fine. Definitely some dead leaves around it, but I think this also is going to be a good illustration for you guys of how little pockets of weather can happen, and how just even the microclimates in your garden can make a difference when it comes to moisture and temperature. So if we look over here, we can see that even though a lot of my basil died back, if we look down in there, the stuff that is in the middle of everything, lower, closer to the ground, that stuff is still alive and green as far as the basil goes. The basil that was very, very sensitive to this temperature swing. And that is because not only is the air going to be warmer closer to the ground, I know that's not intuitive because cold air sinks, but the earth itself is warm and it's holding heat and it's radiating that heat back up, especially if it's absorbing it from the sun during the day. And so until, on a micro scale right next to the earth, that is going to be much warmer. Like on a bigger scale, like in a valley, obviously cold air is going to settle there. But if we look at plants that were more exposed by themselves, more damage than plants that were like in with everything, with all of these different things that are like kind of containing the warm air around it and creating that little bit of microclimate. With the peppers, I'm actually not seeing a ton of frost damage. Like there's a little bit on the tip up here. But these peppers, they seem to be fine. They did not turn to mush. These ones on the ground doing perfectly fine. I feel very lucky. And the weather shows that it's not even supposed to get below 50 Fahrenheit for at least another week. You know what did show, though? This is the ginger. Ginger was not happy. Usually I would pull my ginger before a frost, but seeing as I did not know that was happening, thankfully it's a light enough frost that I don't think that the root is going to be damaged at all. The rhizome that you harvest, it's just the leaves. So I'll probably get to that ASAP and get that out of the ground. I've just been waiting until I have time to actually record it for you guys. Last week I did pull a lot of the ripe peppers off of these plants, getting ready for doing big preserving for the year, but still some of these green ones that were left out here, they are fine, they are ripening, and they now have a little bit more time to continue doing that. Like these little ones, I'm not expecting them to grow and also ripen before my actual frosts start coming in. But something like this, it can be out here for another week and turn redder, get sweeter. Even this one that's like full size and just starting to ripen probably has time. And everything else, especially when it comes to peppers, you can harvest them early, still use them. Sweet peppers, they're green peppers. And with hot peppers, they just might not be as spicy or as sweet if you get them really early. If we check in on this little area here at the back, you can see I have a very dense little planting here in the middle of all the stuff that came up. And then everything else is bare. Except for over here, there's some dill coming up. There's a couple of rutabagas that actually survived the gauntlet, and they're starting to root up a little bit. Very dense lettuce right here, and like nothing over here. And I haven't really seen much sprouting going on underneath all the peppers and all that. But again, there's a lot of roots and shade down there. And as we've seen, lettuce seeds can sit on the soil for a very long time before the conditions are right for them to sprout. So I still have hope that we will see something from our low effort area over there. Oh, this is a big old weed right here. This area where I planted all of the store-bought plants, it's actually still going really great. They're getting pretty well established. I'm seeing them leaf out, spread out. I don't see any frost damage on these. So sometimes even with frost resistant plants, you'll see frost damage when the first frost comes around, especially if it's a sudden temperature swing, just because the plant hasn't had time to prepare. The way a plant prepares for a frost is by putting sugars up into its leaves. And like I said earlier, the reason frost kills plants is because the water inside a cell freezes, and when water freezes, it expands, right? And that's what kills it. With the sugar, the added sugar decreases the freezing point of the water, so sugar water freezes at a lower temperature. And that's why these leaves, with their sugar water instead of just water, can survive lower temperatures. But they need time to move that sugar into the right spots. So sometimes if they're not prepared, they can still be damaged by frost. These are the store-bought peppers that I had put in. I've actually harvested a fair bit off of them now, but honestly it is comparable to what I got from the stunted plants. So that's just, I don't know, that's such an interesting data point, right? That the stunted plants did eventually catch up in production to the ones that were from the store that were never stunted at all. I did not see any frost damage on my blue butterfly peas. They seem to be mostly unaffected by all of this. And the noodle beans, they were already looking like this. I don't really think there was any frost damage. Like, they were already losing leaves. It was a very barren plant, and even without barely any leaves, it's still trying to grow new baby noodle beans here and there. That's a new flower it's trying to make. It's trying so hard. But this is gonna get torn down very, very soon. I do have a couple of peas in this area, and sometimes I think peas are the most sensitive to a very sudden frost, even though they're a frost resistant plant. They just don't do well if the temperature swings super fast, but these guys seem to have done all right. Over here we saw there's a lot of perennials, so not a lot of that is going to be super sensitive to the frost, but maybe even from here you can see one of the biggest things that died and had to change when the frost hit, and we'll get to that. One of them is the cucumbers. They were already sad after the storm, but the frost really did them in. Like, they are dust now. No cucumbers from this for me. It was a little too late on the planting, and I kind of knew that that might happen, but that is okay. And I think I also got the information I needed as far as whether or not using this self-watering planter is a viable option for cucumbers. I think it really will be, and springtime next year we will see for sure, but I get a really good feeling that this is going to make a difference for this heavy water feeding plant. And the other thing that did not fare so well in the frost is the sweet potatoes. You might notice there's none of them left. I actually harvested them all the other day, and that was after the frost like fully killed back all of the foliage. The first frost only killed like the foliage directly in the center, and the rest of it was fine. And then it was the next one that killed off most of the rest of it, and I figured, yeah, it's time. The weather's telling me it's time to dig these. So I did, and then I put in some of these little seedlings that I've had that I definitely should have planted out sooner or up potted. So they might be a little stunted, but I figure trying is better than not trying with them. I've got some Brussels sprouts, some kohlrabis, some cabbages, a few kales, and then I also seeded the rest of all this gap area with spinach and radishes, and those should be coming up very soon. I think it's been like 4 days now that those have been in the ground, so it should be any day now that I start seeing sprouts from all of that. And it being cooler definitely will decrease, increase the amount of time that it takes for stuff to germinate. But now it's warming up again. Like you saw, I was wearing a tank top. It is going to be 80 plus degrees today. And this temperature swing is very typical of South Carolina. So this is what we contend with our fall gardens. Hot, cold, and these poor little plants just do their best. I'm seeing a lot of growth with the carrots. No frost damage on these at all. I don't know if I've ever seen frost damage on a carrot from something like that. Some of these bigger ones, you can start to see there's like not a fruit that's really fattening up, but like, you know, there's a substantial root that is there that will, once it gets more consistently cool, actually balloon out into carrots. So that is very exciting. Somewhere that I did see mild frost damage on plants that are supposed to be resistant to frost was over here. You can see like this leaf, for example, that is kind of mildly frost damaged where it was sticking way up out of the group. There's some yellowing over there. That is also frost damage. And the way you can tell the frost damage from the just general leaves that it is dropping, because like you can see this one has a yellow leaf near the bottom, and that's kind of the difference, is this is near the bottom. It's one of those leaves that the plant is getting rid of anyway. But if it's like a newer leaf or something that was sticking up, then you can kind of think that might be something else that was damaging it and not just the plant getting rid of leaves that are near the bottom. Some of these are starting to look like actual root vegetables at this point. I have never been this successful with root vegetables, so I'm very excited. Oh, that's a cilantro. I forgot that I planted cilantro in here. I didn't think I was going to have any. What a lovely surprise. Oh, and there's peas in here too. Right there. These, too big to eat, the pods. But I think we saw last week you can still eat the peas inside. Oh, I'm going to have to pick that one up. And these are actually good raw. I could shell them and cook them, but there's like 2 of them, so I'll probably just have a little snack. I'm still getting a handful of raspberries every day. Fall is definitely a time I would be expecting to harvest from these, and it's a little less than it would be because a lot of the branches got damaged with all the drought. But yeah, happy to see ripening fruits and many more to come. My citrus made it through this first initial frost, which I fully expected that they would. We still have this one little fruit right there on this kumquat. But the fig did not like the frost. We've got crunchy brown leaves everywhere. And this is a perennial. It'll come back from its roots, so the tops dying off is not a big deal for this plant. And I can't forget to show you guys my little carrot experiment over here. I'm definitely seeing that all these little babies are growing slower than I would have expected. It could be the amount of sunlight they're getting. They are right next to a wall over here, and the way the sun comes on this direction, they're going to get sun a little bit later in the day. But yeah, they're growing a little slower. They are on a struggle bus, we are not making things as easy as we can for them because we're trying to see what's going to happen if we do nothing. And them growing slower seems to be part of that. They're also really crowded, so they're competing really hard for resources. So again, if this is your first year watching garden tours with me, I will be doing these all winter long just to show exactly what is happening all winter long, so that you, as a probably new gardener, can get a really good idea of what to expect from your own garden over the winter, and what not to expect, what's not realistic. And I will be taking you through all of my planning processes that I'm going through over the winter, and we're not even that far from starting the spring garden. For me, that's in like January, February, and that's not that far away. That's like 3 months. So follow along over the winter. I'll still be posting weekly, and I hope that you get something really valuable out of this. Until next week, I wish you all happy gardening.